Hey, welcome to this edition of Thrive. As always, I hope it finds you well and that life is good. You know, one of the things that's been on my heart a lot lately is the whole issue of loss, of dealing with loss. I say that because I'm aware that in this post-lockdown era, people are still trying to process the sense of loss that they have felt. You know, loss comes in many forms. We tend to just readily identify loss with death. And granted, that's certainly the most obvious thing to associate it with. The only thing is that when we associate it with death, I think what we do is we minimize other forms. Because when somebody loses somebody who they love, when we know somebody who's lost someone close to them, the loss is visible. We see it. We know that we have to step up, and we are consciously aware of their new reality, and we work hard to help people navigate through that. But when loss comes in other forms, it's a lot more difficult. You know, I think of people who, for example, have to deal with the loss of a dream, the loss of a hope. Young women who grow up wanting to be mothers, and time marches on and they reach the point where they realize that the likelihood of that happening is just gone. And they have to deal with that. You know, what about friendships? The loss of friendships. Friendships come and go sometimes, don't they? We move on into another stage of life and the friendship that we had with somebody doesn't. Or we move geographically and the friendships that we valued are no more. And then there's stages of life. I remember when the last of our kids got married and left home, and my wife felt it keenly because so much of her life had been built around our family. She had invested her time in raising the kids, of being there for them, of mentoring them, of creating a home for them. And when the last one left, the home was empty and that stage had come to an end, and she felt that loss keenly. I say that simply because if we don't recognize that loss comes in many forms, then we tend to minimize our own loss unless it comes in the form of death. And when we minimize our loss, what we're doing is we're denying ourselves the opportunity to live out of the fullness of life in the next stage that we find ourselves. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're processing loss, you know, in any form, to be aware of it and to be intentional about it. Here's what I do, because I'm aware that life involves loss. It's going to happen. I want to process it well so that I can move into the next stage well and continue to thrive. The first thing that I'm aware of is that when I'm going through loss, I make sure that I reach out to those around me. You know, the tendency is to internalize loss, to internalize your feelings, to internalize all of those emotions and try and not let them out. And I want to say that that's unhelpful. You've got to find people that you can process with, that you can talk to, that you can just open up with, so that they're aware of what you're going through. Because when they are aware, they can help you maintain perspective. They're aware of your good days, they're aware of your bad days, they understand the reasons for it, and they can come alongside and support you so that you are making progress, or you do make progress in processing it. I think of Ecclesiastes 4, which says, two are better than one, for when one falls, the other can pick them up. The second thing that I found really helpful is to go back to that time when I felt most alive. I go back to that time when I felt closest to God, and I tap into those feelings and those emotions, and I let them begin to revive me. You may say, well, how does that work? Well, a big thing in society today is, you know, we talk a lot about our safe places. For me, my safe places are those times when I felt the presence of God, when I experienced God's goodness, when I felt close to God. And when I go back to those places in my mind, so to speak, I'm aware that the God who was with me there is still with me. The God who loved me then loves me now. The God hasn't brought me thus far to abandon me. That he still wants the best for my life. And just knowing that begins to help me recognize that these losses are felt not just by me, but by God. That he's aware of what I'm going through, and it allows me to move on from them. You know, I think what we need to do is we need to recognize that that it's natural to have ups and downs in life, but they don't define us. And that in those times of loss, when we may feel that God is not with us, he's just with us in a different way. And by recognizing that, it helps us draw near to him again and to leave those losses with him so that we can process healthily and move into the next chapter healthily, so that we can thrive and look forwards to whatever's coming next. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's something that you might be able to tap into in your times of loss. In the meantime, God bless you.